All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. I know I've been late. It's been a while. I know it's been busy. And honestly, it's one of the things where I don't want to be in a position where it's just like, I'm just putting a podcast there and I'm not like ready for it. So again, welcome to the world's famous Billions Watch. We're available here on YouTube. We're also available on Spotify, the podcast, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. All the other stuff you want to check out is available on TikTok at Joe Lobo Presents. Anything outside of TikTok, you can go ahead and check it over there. But for the most part, this is all the podcast stuff. So I welcome everyone in and I say hi. It's been a very, very, very long time. And I know that part of it too is just because of the fact that, like, I think because we have taken on pretty much doing the edits of the actual file that goes towards Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and back here to YouTube, specifically for YouTube Music, right? I wanted to make sure that we put more emphasis on that. And what's happening is basically the length of time that we get from podcast to podcast with the full edits takes longer. I mean, it's crazy how much effort it takes, and it's fine. This is what I signed up for. This is why, this is my gig. This is my belief. So, so basically this is where, we have to think about how far we can do this. And remember, like back in the days when we were at TikTok, we would try to do a live or podcast every day. And it was doable because, like, we weren't essentially putting stuff anywhere. And it wasn't until like last July where we decided to say, okay, somehow, some way, we just got to a position where we're actually now podcast worthy, I guess you can say, that we decided to go this route. So this is where we did minor editing, blah, blah, blah. And then moving fast forward, when I realized, okay, well, if I care about my quality, then we're going to do the full edit. So full edits now are taking, and plus life is busy. Life is always busy for me in the Philippines. So like, trying to do that. And like, if, for example, it'll take at least 3 to 4 days. Now, full days, probably I can get this edited done in 3 days. But, life gets in the way and you have to deal with it. And I got to make time for it. Just like, for example, I wanted to make sure I do a podcast today because of the fact by Friday, I'm going to Cebu. So like, if you think about the amount of time to do a podcast and then do the edit, make it available so that the edited version is available on the other platforms, it's going to take too much time. So this is what it is. So anyway, this is one of the things where, like, I don't want to put, and also too, I don't want to put a podcast where I feel like as if like, I'm forcing myself to do it. And that's not authentic of me. Like, yes, this is authentic in which we're doing this live. We're talking to people like you, the ones who are touching. I see people are in chat. I say hi to them. I know who they are. Shouts out to Manila Horror, by the way. But for the most part, just like I want to be as, try to be as genuine, authentic as I can when I do these podcasts with you, because of the fact of, who would want to listen to a podcast where the person doesn't seem so like 100%? So, I really take passion and pride in these things, and I want to make sure that I can at least provide you with, a level of service that people are going to expect. Again, I know this is not a cup of tea for everyone. Some people will look at this in YouTube and like, whatever. And some people will say, wow, this is some awesome stuff in which, I can listen to this guy and he's giving me information where it's just like, it's pushing me forward to get to the next level. So that's where I take it as. And it's funny too, because I remember having a conversation with my older, and mind you, he has his own podcast, and I realize now his podcast is more as a community organization here in Bohol for LGBTIQ, his presence. That's what he wants. So it's not just a podcast. He wants to do extra level high stuff, right? He wants to do a community organization. I applaud him, but it's just like, it's hard in that situation where like you go from, I want to do a podcast and get this big and do all that. But I mean, yeah, more power to him. But like for me, and I look for here on the podcast, right? It's just a podcast. And this is where like I made a decision a couple episodes back. I think it's about a month or two ago, that we decided to move the podcast here on YouTube. It's because of the fact of, like, I wanted to be specific. I want to touch an audience. If I put everything that I put on TikTok here, then it would mess up it. And it'll be harder. It would mess it up as in the algo of who this needs to be touched to, because, I'm not so in one lane. It would be in so many different avenues where it would be kind of challenging to show people like where to find it. And it's interesting. The reason why I brought that up is because, like, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I actually went through the exercise of cleaning up like my keywords. If you're on YouTube, for example, if you are having issues in which, like, folks are not looking for your videos or whatnot, you probably want to look in and this is in YouTube Studio, by the way, you probably want to look at your keywords to see, like, okay, well, this will help you boost, like, your search or boost your algorithm. And then there's a second part to that, checking how people are finding you. So what was happening is, the first things first, we evaluated, and this is by help of ChatGPT. At this point in age of life, where you're not using AI, you should start using AI. Make your life easier. Now, when I was looking at my keywords, there's several things we changed, because I showed some of my analytics to ChatGPT. I was like, here's what I'm doing, here's what it's looking at. And then there were some decisions that we made where, ChatGPT said, okay, this is what you should do. Before we even got there, the question he asked or he or she asked for ChatGPT is, okay, how are people finding you? And the most hilarious things is this. They weren't. It was random. So people were finding me as, in the sense where, like, if you look up a washing machine, then Joe Lobo Presents the Authentic Podcast appears. It was very, very random in how people appears. So sometimes, like, for example, YouTube would try to push my my videos, my posts, my live, what have you, to test it out, and it would do great. You can see it. It went out, but how people are finding me to make it consistent so people can come back, that was a challenge. So that's where we went through the exercise, and I did some modifications to some of the recent videos and some of the shorts just to make it more aligned to what my brand is, to make it work. So this is one of the things I'll make mention is that, you as a content creator here on YouTube, you definitely want to look into a situation where you are revisiting this. This is all available in YouTube Studio. YouTube Studio. Look at your keywords. That is just gonna help you have people find you easy. Also, to follow, and this is what I do. I use AI. I use ChatGPT to say, hey, this is my video. This is how it did. This is how many views it got. What do you think we should update it so that can touch a broader audience? And then ChatGPT said, hey, do this, make this changes, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I did. So as a content creator, and I encourage everyone to do that. It's just like, unless you have, like, I'm going to just name drop her again. One of my friends, and some of you I've mentioned many times here. Yes, Maisal Girl. She has a huge following. I don't really think she needs it, but it would help. Like, she organically gets her followings, and I'm proud of where she's at. She's almost at 11,000 followers now. That's fucking amazing. But, like, stuff like that where she doesn't really need it because she's getting followers from other traffic and they're following here on YouTube. Yeah, she doesn't really need it, but yeah, it could help her so you can reach out to a broader audience, But, like, for the most part, like, those are individuals, like, if you're coming from some big platform and you're already known there, then you probably don't need it. But for me, as an individual who's coming out from rebranding or starting from a brand new page here on YouTube, yeah, we got to start from the beginning. And this is where it's fine, where everyone's going to run to that situation where, like, for the most part, like, there are going to be times where you are going up these steps and you feel like you're almost there, but somehow, some way, something happens where it just doesn't work anymore and you have to end up starting from the beginning. And that's what I did with this journey. Like, I mentioned before on my previous podcast, I did have another YouTube channel. It was Joe Lobo Presents. Joe Lobo Presents was basically me with cinematics and then doing motivational series called The Daily Authentic. Now, what I took from that, and unfortunately I couldn't use that channel anymore because I was thinking about just rebranding that channel and then reliving it. But the problem is I lost the password. As I mentioned to you, I lost the password. I lost the email address and no longer have it. So I had to start brand new. But what I did do is use the learnings from that first page and apply it here. So again, making sure you pay attention to your analytics, pay attention to whether it's quarterly or whatnot, or monthly or quarterly, see how your analytics and your keywords type in together, like how they come in together. Because for the most part, this is just gonna help you at the end of the day. Like for me, as a growing person, a growing YouTube channel, this just helps me tons. And it's amazing why I'm doing this stuff ahead is because of the fact that, as you can see, it is eye-opening, where if you look at YouTube and your analytics and you ask the search terms that people are picking up, and literally it was like Michael Jordan washing machines shoes, totally irrelevant to this podcast. So this is why I tell you, it's just like, these are the extra steps you want to do to be successful. That's what I do. Unless, you're like my friend, where she's basically getting organically people from other platforms and they follow her, and that's great. Congratulations. That's fucking amazing. I'm proud to have a friend like that, because just like that, it also motivates me, and hopefully like I motivate her, just like, hey, think bigger out the box. And it's interesting too, because I'm starting to see maybe a little bit where she's thinking not just one box, she's thinking multiple boxes, which is good. Because if you're in a position where you want to grow, and sometimes you have to realize that when you're growing, you have to think beyond just that one single thought. Like I always told people, I remember in the past, and when we were on this beginning journey back in July, where I was telling folks, and this is back in TikTok, you can't just think about TikTok. You got to think bigger than TikTok. There's a bigger platform. If you're serious of what you're planning to do, if you're serious of being a content creator, for me, for example, thinking of as a podcaster, like you can't just stay in TikTok. And best example, TikTok, I'm in TikTok, Philippines, obviously, the regional location. I speak English. Most of my audience there speaks Tagalog. So it's an even huge challenge to convey a message there. That is one of the reasons why I'm here on YouTube, is because of the fact of the reach. I think the reach is going to go further than the Philippines. And I feel that there's ways in YouTube based on the algo where it can push you to broader audience who can understand it. Also too, if you didn't know, any videos that you do after they get loaded or whatnot, the closed captioning is customizable, as in you can set it to whatever your native language is. So for example, if there's people who are getting, coming over from let's say TikTok, who are following me and they want to watch my podcast, and they want to watch the later version, the edited version, what have you, right? They can just change the closed captioning and put in Tagalog. So they're like, wow, that's what Joe's been saying the whole time. Because I'm pretty sure, like when I have these motivation series, unless I have the people who they have a sense of, a higher comprehension of like English, they're going to be like, okay, that's great, but I get it. But there's a huge population where just like, and I see it. Gosh, can you speak English? Can you speak Tagalog? It's just like, I get it, because like, my English, how I speak and how fast I speak, sometimes it can get hard to understand. And also too, I take it as in the Philippines, yes, they understand English. However, it's the comprehension speed of them like taking in what you're saying to convey it back to, oh, okay. So this is where like, I have to be a little more patient. And this is why, again, I have to be more patient in TikTok. And then that's when I realized, I was like, wait a minute, we'll just move this over here, because of the fact of what is more available here on YouTube. So I think for the long run, as I look for the podcast, and I always firmly believe, and this kind of ties into what we're going to be talking about today, I firmly believe in what I'm doing. And maybe some people look at me and they're like, nah, there's no way, no how. But let me show you. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but you're going to see how far this goes and be surprised. every day I surprise myself of how far I go on this journey. Like, I honestly did not believe that I would get to the position or point to be right here, right now, talking comfortably live on YouTube. I remember even back in 2024, before I moved here to the Philippines, having like the conversations with my friends on my going away party. They were like, bro, you're gonna have a lot of downtime. I think you should just become a content creator. And I'm just like, I don't know about that. And then one thing led to another, and then we're here. We became what we are now. It came to levels of this journey of like doing one thing and led to another. Like I mentioned before, doing short form cinematics. Then it turned out to be, let's do a more motivational series. And then it turned to, let's be more in your face. And then something happened. And I usually thought it was for something else, but it turned out to be, for me, the birth of this podcast, the Authentic Podcast. Yes, there's many authentic podcasts, but mine is Joe Lobo Presents the Authentic Podcast. So regardless how far we have gone, regardless how far, people may perceive it as, it's like, wow, you're this small. But nah. Like, honestly, like, everything I look at as how far we've gone with this is just like, it's been great. And it's funny too, because like, speaking of platforms I'm on, like, yes, let's think about it. We're on YouTube right now on live, and we repost basically the edited version back in here. And then we're going to do 2 shorts after we do this freaking edit, which is probably gonna be done in 3-4 days. Might be done next Monday, Tuesday, because I'm going to Cebu on Friday for 2 nights. I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm also on, what else? I think I'm on Amazon. I haven't checked the stuff. I'm on Amazon Music, Audible, so there's a population there. Shoot, you can just Google search Joe Lobo Presents the Authentic Podcast, and you can probably see how far I'm going. Not to mention TikTok. That's where we came from. We came from TikTok. It's just now TikTok's a little bit different. It's more focused upon what's beyond this podcast. And I think it should be like that. So like, if you ever venture, again, I mentioned this before in my last podcast, if you ever venture over into TikTok, please do, because it's just another side of me that if you're curious about who I am, it's another side of me where it's just like, I guess a IRL version of me, I guess you can say, where like, I either take time to go sing sometimes, or I'm playing video games, or it also becomes me editing, where I spend time editing, like just show people on TikTok, this is what I'm doing to make this podcast work. Things that are outside of the podcast, because I at least want to keep this controlled because of the fact of like, as I mentioned, like this is here on YouTube, this is here to stay. There's reasons why I'm doing this because of the fact of 1, the quality, 2, the reach. I feel that even though TikTok is bigger, but I don't think the podcast can live there. And that's why I made the decision. I made the decision to go ahead and just, let's move it here. And I think it's a great decision. One way or another, we will get to a position where my friend's at. We will. You watch. It's already growing. It's interesting too, because like TikTok is going, I'm getting a lot more followers on TikTok too, but I think it's just because of the fact that the people I'm connecting with. And that's the important thing too, is like when you connect to certain people, and this is where like it's part of the design of the universe, the law of attraction, which we'll be talking about today. It's amazing who they point you towards and what happens from that. So like, speaking of TikTok, there was a individual I just met recently, and all of a sudden, like, just getting another connection, and then it's working out for me. And then also too, it's working out for her because of the fact that like helping her through her struggles, to the point where she felt that, I was like a psychologist. Well, yeah, I am a psychologist actually. I have a bachelor's of science in industrial organizational psychology. What is that? It's basically people who are in the corporate world as working in learning development. It never really went that way, but concepts, the meanings, how it works, it's all relative, even if you apply it into the real world. And then also too, it's just like my experiences and who I am and whatnot drive the conversation, or the if people are looking for answers or questions, or they have something that just their concern, they always come to me. So this is how I met that person. I met mutually by another friend, where she was like, hey, she said you should like reach out to this person, she's cool. And I did, and she turned out to be cool, and kind of maybe for a small amount of time figured out what she is, and she's cool. So yeah, just like always embracing those situations where you meet people, because they're probably at the right time supposed to be there to align you with stuff. So for the most part, like, TikTok has been going great, going good. I've been doing my singing over there. So if you're curious how I sing, please go over there. I'm nowhere a professional. I'm a karaoke artist at best. But if you want to see the other side of me, please go ahead and take a look at over there. So now, like, going back to this in the journey, I firmly believe I believe that we're gonna take this far. And I don't know how it's gonna happen. I just have this firm belief that basically we'll get to that position. We'll get to that point. It's all about believing in it and seeing it, and then seeing all the events occur. So, that's kind of ties in what we're going to talk about today. Now, basically, this topic I did do my first podcast, I think, back on, if you check in Spotify and Apple Podcasts, it's there. This is where we talked about this before. We talked about the law of attraction. This is what it is. We're going to be talking about the law of attraction, how manifestation works. Again, have an open heart, an open ear to it. I know most people will say, like, that's a lot of horseshit. Teach his own. Agree to disagree what we believe in. But yet again, based on people's experiences and what they believe in, who am I to say no of what is right and wrong? I'm just going based off of my experiences of what I've seen and believed in and who I am. And they applied. They worked. It's interesting. It's amazing. Sometimes it's amazing and scary at the same time, where it's like wow, this is how it turned out to be. So that's what I wanted to do today. Is just like, I wanted to, and I've been reserving this. Again, I've been thinking about this topic usually I do these podcasts where just like I come in and I just talk, and then we go off of lately it's been going about like my expat experiences, and then we lead it into our motivational, inspirational stuff. Then we go from there. But this one particularly, I was like, thought about it. I was like, okay, since I'm on YouTube, I don't think most of the people, obviously I can't repost that original one because of the fact of the music copyright. So I thought about it. I was just like, why not just talk about it again? Why don't we just talk about my experience of law of attraction? How did I find it? What examples have I experienced? And last, how do you apply it? What is it about? So that's what I'm going to go off of. And I think it's going to be this conversation is going to be directly off the bat. We're going to go with this. Again, take the open mind to it. I know this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Yes, this might ruffle a lot of people's fucking feathers. I fucking get it. Okay, it's not your cup of tea. Just hear me out. But for the most part, I have seen and felt and experienced in my mind that it works. Whether you believe it, and this thing that we believe in, whether I call it the universe, some maybe we call it God, or whatever you believe in, I honestly feel, and to each his own, agree to disagree, we all believe, like all the religions or faiths or whatnot, we all believe kind of in the same center being. It's just the fact of how we portray them as, or how we utilize them. So this is where it kind of ties into what I'm talking about with the law of attraction. Is like, most people, I feel, this is just my opinion, most people feel that they have to be, it's like a servant to this individual, or you feel like you must do this, or this individual is not going to bless you if you don't do what you're supposed to do, and it's going to be all nothing but bad luck, blah, blah, blah. It's based on their tradition. Who am I to say what's right or wrong? That's up to you. What I can say for my experiences and who I portray this individual or energy or being what it is, I feel like they're all at our advantage, where they're here to help us. And it's really based upon you, yourself, to make that decision of what you want to do. And mind you, whatever you think about it, whatever you do, whatever you go off of, the answer is always yes. So what I mean by that is basically like, if you're having a bad meal and you're saying, man, I'm terrible, I'm shit, I'm never going to do this, blah, blah, blah. In my mind, the deity, universe, God, what have you, is probably saying in their mind, okay, sure, you're none of those. You're never going to be it. Okay, cool. Or using the other way, just like, I believe in my craft. I believe this podcast is going to go far. Watch us. I don't know how it's going to do or it's going to happen, but these events are going to happen in circumstances. See the difference? Universe would be like, yes. God is like, yes, absolutely. As long as you believe it, you firmly put your heart into it, you'll see the things that happen, the situations, the events, the circumstances that tie in together. It's interesting sometimes when you meet the people who kind of have the same belief set or spirituality with you, how they all feel the same way. You know what I mean? It's interesting when you meet those people. So like, I don't think anything is by chance. I think it's all by attraction, where you are at that moment in life. And you know, this is where, like, for at least 10 to 15 years now, since more than 10 to 15 years, what was it, 2000, when I started started knowing about it to actually firm belief. And it took me years to understand how this shit works, right? It wasn't just like a immediate, like, okay, let's do super manifesting, blah, blah, blah. No, it took me, I'll be honest, years just to understand and realize the activities it was, you know, like, to actually finally understand it, to tie in my authentic self and see the more authentic, more genuine you are, more gratitude you can put out to the universe, the faster the synchronicities of events occur. So that's some of the things I learned were just like, wow, like, you know, you gotta be this. And sometimes it feels like as if like you are constantly monitoring yourself every day. But honestly, when you keep on doing it and you realize like what is things you want to put yourself in and what not, it's actually not as bad as you think. It's not really 100% mind monitoring, like, oh shit, I gotta be careful what I say and blah, blah, blah. It's all about making sure, like, you know, your intention, your heart, your belief is important. And then just practicing on the things that will help amplify it, you know? So we'll get to more of that, but I think we'll start from the beginning, where it's just like, you know, back in 2008, and this is kind of when I was in my first job. I just graduated, but I was still in my first actual job. I was working for IKEA back in the day. And then within that time, and I think it was a little bit after, why am I dropping fames? A little bit after I graduated in 2006. Basically, it was a hype. I guess you could say it was hype back then. Out of nowhere, there was a hype came out. There was a book called, or a video called The Secret came out. And I think it started, how I got myself into this is like, I think it got referred by my older. My older was the one that shared me, hey, you should take a look at this. This is something interesting stuff. You should take a look. They actually introduced me to the law of attraction. It was called The Secret. The video is called The Secret. I think it was produced by Rhonda. It was produced by Rhonda Byrne, I think back in Australia. And then there was a video flying around that's talking about The Secret, right? And then, you know, first time I watched the video, it was just like, wow, this is amazing. Like, people are just like in their mind saying what they're going to say, and then bam, it appears. I think one of the people I usually follow, I've followed before, where basically he was just talking about how he was building a house. He had his plans for a house. And then one of the things, like, where he didn't even think about it, but first things first, he put a design, and if you don't know what this is, he put it on this vision board. A vision board is like a tool or method that people usually do who practice law of attraction. They put it on this bulletin board of things they want to accomplish in life. And he put a dream house. So time went on, and then he realized that, wow, the house that he was living in was the dream house. He didn't even realize the house that he bought, that he built, blah, blah, blah. He didn't realize in the end of it, like, wow, this is my house that I was manifesting. And stuff like that. And that was amazing. Where just like, like watching those tunes. And then this is where I met and got in touch with, Teachings of Abraham, Esther Hicks and Jerry Hicks, talking about how they use a third person entity called Abraham. And then they provide the knowledge of how the law of attraction works, how to apply it, blah, blah, blah. That's how I got to know, for example, Esther Hicks and Jerry Hicks because of the Secret video. And then also my introduction to Neale Donald Walsch. I think I've talked to you guys before here. If you don't know who Neale Donald Walsch is, highly suggest you take a look at the book Conversations with God. It's a huge book. It's a huge volume. I think it's 4 volumes in the book, but it's a really worthwhile read. Again, you got to have an open mind to it because of the fact of, yes, there can be some things that can challenge what you believe in. And, sometimes people get offended easily of stuff that goes off of what, is out of their norm. So this is why I met that. When I saw them, I got introduced to them in the video, Michael Beckwith. Michael Beckwith is like I'll say he's like an omni priest. I forgot what he does, but he does stuff in TikTok. I know he does not in TikTok. He does stuff in Facebook where he shows his church and whatnot, and just like the same thing, same preach, talking about how the law of attraction, you think about it, you manifest it, and it comes in physicality. And it made it seem easy, right? And there was another person. There was the guy who he manages Tut.com. Mike Dooley is another individual I met. But again, you see what I'm saying. So basically they would show videos. These people would come up. They would go talk about their experiences with the law of attraction and then say, hey, this is what I did, blah, blah, blah. Here's my experiences, blah, blah, blah. Like, here's what came out of it. And then, I saw that video. I was like, wow, that's a fucking amazing video. And it's like, is it that easy? And then, this is where you try to apply it. You try to do this. And then, it was the heyday. I remember showing and experiencing and sharing with people when I was working at IKEA, and I was talking about, hey, I watched this video called The Law of Attraction. It's called The Secret. If you guys watch it, and blah, 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 blah. And I remember one of the people, she was like a manager back then. She was like, oh, it was all that who blah, blah. Oh no, I heard about that stuff. I don't believe in it. There's no way. It's all theatrics, blah, 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 blah. And then, back then, like, to each his own, people have their rights or wrongs or what they can believe in or not believe in, but that's them. But for the most part, like, remember, and this is another thing, I remember preaching out to people. I turned out to be like a preacher about it and just like talking about like to people, and folks are just like, oh, this is what it does, blah, 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 blah. And, at that time, when you talk about something that's uncomfortable and most people don't understand what you're saying, people might think you're kind of out of left field, if you know what I mean. Because I remember there was a point in this journey where, for example, I would talk about it so much where just like, I'll tell you about like, if I do this and I become this, blah, 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 this is what we're going to manifest, blah, 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 blah. And I talked about it so much where at that point in time, one of my close friends pulled me aside. It's like, man, you need to stop this, man, because you're sounding like something's wrong with you. Like you sound, I forgot the word he used, but you sound concerning, that people are trying to shy away from you. But the thing is, and that's one of the lessons I learned from you. We're just like, okay, well, and this is where the back and forth of me talking about this. We're just like, man, is this real or not? Is this something that is just make believe? And tons of my friends, I'll be honest with you, tons of my friends back then in 2008 were just like, yeah, there's a pile of stuff. There's no way you can do that. No way, blah, 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 this and that. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. but I still believed in it. I still believed in the law of attraction. And it was one example, and I'll find more examples down the road when we build up to that part where, you know, even out of my like graduating from college and out of my first initial job, I was thinking about a situation where, like, you know, I wanted to get the dream job. I wanted to work in San Francisco, work in the financial district with what I graduated upon. And then, you know, the journey was rough sometimes because, like, I remember there was one job where, like, I was just like, it was called a marketing firm, and it turned out to be me in a suit, walking 5 miles in dress shoes, doing door-to-door sales of baseball tickets. And yeah, that was an interesting journey. But going back to this one, you know, I was kept on visualizing using the concept I learned from the secret video. Without, you know, again, this is the early heyday. I didn't fully understand what was going on. You know, I was visualizing eating up. Like, this is how it's gonna go. This is what's gonna be. Blah blah blah. And funny enough, there was a company that came up, and it was a recruiting firm. And mind you, when I graduated from my psychology degree, a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Organizational Psych, I initially believed that I was like, oh, maybe I should be going this route, become a recruiter. Didn't really understand what my role was or what kind of job I had, so I became a recruiter. So yeah, one thing led to another. I applied for this job. I applied for this recruiting firm, and I was excited. And, you know, I believe that in sometimes where, like, even if your intentions aren't really finite to what it is, the law of attraction will try to apply whatever it is to make it happen, to make it come to existence, in a sense you say. So, like, this one was like, okay, I was visualizing in the mind what it could be. I remember visualizing the conversation and meeting the people that I was getting interviewed with and working in the financial district in San Francisco, and it did happen. I got hired at a recruiting firm, and then I visualized the success of my interviews and meeting these people, and it was great. It was amazing. It was a recruiting firm. However, I don't think the manifestation was well thought out, because what it turned out to be is, you know, I didn't last 2 weeks. So, man, and I have to take a step back. When I was working at IKEA, I was almost there for like 6-7 years, I think. So I was already stable there. If I waited a little bit longer, because I was also working on just kind of doing a side thing over there, where trying to line myself up to my degree, which is like working HR. If I waited a little bit longer, I probably had the opportunity to do that, but I didn't. I jumped ship and did this recruiting firm. So, like, you know, visualizing like what recruiters would be for a corp job and who they are. Then, you know, they're talking to all these people, getting the right people in, blah, blah, blah. This wasn't what I expected when I started. I remember showing up there, and basically it was essentially, you had a phone, you have this list to call every day, even though these might not be people who don't want to talk to you or not, but you have this list. You have to constantly call them to try to get an interview for your potential hiree that you're helping put in the company. So when I actually did the job, I remember it was very sales heavy, like people and individuals who were just like, you know, very gung-ho and like would tell me, oh, I don't know what this thing is, but I can tell you I can sell it. I can do this and this and that. Like, you can tell as like former sellers, people who are heavy in sales, but who are doing recruiting and whatnot. So like, you can tell that mentality where just like, I remember that, where also too, the time those jobs started from 7 o'clock in the morning, and it ended around 6-7 o'clock at night. Mind you, from San Francisco, I lived about 20 miles away, which the commute time from that time was about 2 hours. So like, you can figure out by the time I go home, it's just like literally have 5 hours of sleep to do anything. And then it turned out to be not the greatest experience ever. It was probably one of the things where, you know, it was too good to be true, I guess you can say, where basically I only worked there for 2 weeks. That's what it turned out to be. We're just like, it seemed as if, and it was the weirdest stuff ever. I remember like, having these interviews with people where I was talking to like company leaders about telling my client, showcasing my client of like, hey, this is what we can do. We can help you. And I had my like, look, I was positioned where my manager was looking in my face while talking on the phone and telling me the words to say. And then she would tell me, at one point it was that like, I wouldn't follow her, and she was just like getting upset, like, you have to do it this way, blah blah blah, like Telly's not selling. And then I'm just like, okay, whatever. And then I remember it came to a part where just like towards the end of 2 weeks, this is where I was living in my brother's apartment in San Francisco, and I was just like, man, I don't want to do this job anymore. And I was getting frustrated because of the fact of like, picture this, I was working almost 12 hours, and mind you, how much I was getting paid for that job was this small. It was small. It was the entry first real job, I guess you can say, but it wasn't a lot. So even for the amount of hours you're working and what you're getting paid, it wasn't justified to even do that. You know what I mean? So when it came to that, I just made a decision. I remember I think it was one of those moments of time where I stayed at my brother's condo, and I was crying. I was just like, I don't want to do this shit anymore, because it's just like it was the most terrible experience ever. So basically from there, I made the decision where it was just like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. And mind you, what I ended up doing is I shot an email to the manager, and I'll tell them I quit. I didn't step my face back into that office. It was just like, it wasn't me. I mean, granted, I met some people there. There was amazing people I met. It was just like, I didn't like the sense of being pressured to sell something or try to pretend I knew something when I didn't. You know what I mean? So like, it was a recruiting firm for engineers. And basically my job was to look for candidates and also source companies who are looking for experience in Java. If you know what Java is, it's a communication language for computing. I had no experiences in Java, so it was kind of making shit up, like using key terms to figure what to get the ears of these engineers so that we can get them into, get them into our business, and then also linking them with the candidates who are coming in for our help. So basically, it wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I remember that night where I was like in my brother's condo, I was crying. I was like, I don't want to do this shit. I quit. And I did. I quit. It was a challenge though, finding a role after that. But I think when I want to relay this back to the law of attraction, it's just like, sometimes I feel like if you don't think out of a plan and you're so rushed into it, sometimes the universe of law of attraction will give you some image of what it is. However, if it's not well thought out, like as in the outcomes of what's going to be, it's not going to be what you want to think. Now, mind you, as in terms of the law of attraction, and I'll go into what it is all about, but in terms of law of attraction, I think I gave the intention like, okay, yes, you will get the job. Yes, you will work in San Francisco. Yes, you will get a recruiting firm. However, it's going to be that. Everything else that comes out of it, you'll figure it out. And that's what I think we're like, for the law of attraction, it'll be situations where you intentionalize in your mind like what you want to do and what you want to be. And sometimes the universe would just be like this. Okay, here you go. What do you think? You want to try it out? And that's what I really think. And in that situation where, I felt as if like, hey, it gave me the door, it put me in there, and found out that it wasn't what I wanted to be. And maybe the part of the reasoning for that, for the law of attraction, maybe to show me, it's like, this is what you really want to do. Like, we'll give you the keys, I'll let you drive the car, but it's up to you to find out if you want to keep the car and keep going. And came to find out, no, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to wake up and work 12 hours and I think at that point in time, the U.S. salary was entry-level U.S. salary. So I was making nothing. I was making probably, I think it was $30,000 salary a year, less than that, $13,000 USD. It was very small for the amount of time you did. I don't even think there was overtime. So basically it was making nothing. Mind you, keep in factor, I live 20 miles away. I had to take public transportation. So out of the budget of me working in my salary, there goes the budget of going public transit, and then the food or whatever, what have you. I remember, like, you know, since I had to start at 7 o'clock, I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to the public transit. It's called BART. It's a subway system in California, Northern California. I had to wake up at 4, get to the BART station by 5 to get to work by 7 o'clock. And then when the day was done, I would do the same thing, go back home and be home by 10 o'clock to wake up at 5 in the morning. That kind of sucks, don't you think? So I think in that situation, the law of attraction was like, okay, well, here we go. What do you think? And gave me the situation like where I did say no. I quit. So yeah, I remember seeing my manager. I didn't tell her what I thought. I just said, fuck it. I just sent an email to her and said, I'm not coming back. And then they gave me my last, whatever I got paid for those 2 weeks, and then went forward. I remember those opportunities too, when I talked about that job, that marketing job. And that's where it came after the fact, where I was looking for a job, trying to find something where, like, somehow, some way I can get an opportunity somewhere. And I think sometimes the law of attraction will put you in places depending on what you're thinking about and what the circumstances are. So, like, it's still in the mode of, like, okay, I want to be in this suit and tie and get into, like, maybe something that's maybe something that's going to be worthwhile. So I think the next one, this is where it was a company called Merrimack Capital. How they positioned themselves was as a marketing firm. So in my mind, when I was thinking of marketing, I thought you're going to do like those big accounts, you marketing for some promotion they're doing, like what have you. Like, for example, take it as, you know, someone promoting something big and you're going to be part of it. So yeah, of course, why not? Coming out of college, you want the best job ever and best experiences of whatever it's going to be. Yeah, you went ahead and did it. So it was interesting too, because I remember the interview was pretty fast. I think I found this job, mind you, I found this job back then. Yeah, I think it was an internet job board. It was an internet job board back then, and then I applied for it. They called me immediately. They took me in. What they took it as is basically this: okay, come in. We want you to come in. We do an on-the-job training just to show you what it is, and then we can reevaluate you and go from there. So I remember that, like, I showed up, and this is when I was wearing my my suit and tie from my previous job, and then basically what it turned out to be, we meet in the office. Everything is cool. They had their big TV playing a movie, and then like they had like everyone in the office. It was like very rah, like very like they're all having fun and this and that. And it turned out to be like we ended up going to another city, which was like 40 miles away. And what we were doing there, and what I was walking with, and they partnered us up in different groups. So I was with let me think. It was with 2 people who already worked there, and me. One of the things they promised to is, oh, we'll pay for lunch, don't worry, blah blah blah, this and that. We'll take care of your lunch. But then I was thinking back then, man, you're gonna give me a good lunch because, like, you know, this is a corp job. What it turned out to be is basically this. I talked about it before. Instead of, I think their term of marketing was basically business to business sales. What I was selling and what they were trying to sell to people, and they were showing me this, right? They were showing me what they were selling, and it was basically, if you guys are aware, baseball. This is when I was back in California, so it was Oakland A's tickets. So basically, we were going door to door to, I think we were going to companies, like, you know, we're in the industrial area, going to places door to door, saying, hey, we're selling this promotional package. And they're showing me they were selling this promotional package of essentially, here, you can buy these baseball tickets. Are you interested? 40 miles away from where I just parked my car. And then I was like, okay, and I kind of I was like, what the this is not what I wanted to do, right? So basically, that's what I saw. They basically put me in the position where, like, we're going door to door selling stuff that it's kind of ridiculous. And then we went to lunch. Here's the most interesting thing of all things. I initially was thinking about, oh, we're gonna have like a business lunch, and you're gonna take me to a business, like, somewhere to talk about how this stuff works. No, we went to a fast food place. They just gave me $5 and said, here's $5, get a meal, and we'll eat. And then I was just like, okay. And coming out of college, I left, basically I left that one job that was in the recruiting firm, and then I was in this job, and I looked at myself just like, I didn't go to college for this shit. Like, I didn't go to college, and this is the two I was talking about. Literally, I was in dress shoes. We walked about 5 miles. So if you're in the Philippines and you're trying to understand, well, okay, what is 5 miles? So I think 5 kilometers is basically, it's 3 miles, I think, more or less. So I essentially did 11 kilometers of walking in dress shoes, and it was super hot that day. And then I remember, and the thing that sucked is this, my sports jacket was stuck in their car because I was just wearing a regular shirt and tie because we were walking in the heat in the town that was 40 miles away. However, I had a cousin that lived close to him. I had my phone. I was at a point where in that ride where I was basically gonna say, call my cousin and say, can you pick me up here? Because I'm in this weird job thing where it's not what I think it is. But however, the problem was my car was at their office, my jacket is in their car, so I'm just like, fuck. So I toughed it out. And I remember that we're just like, man, they were trying to sell me and all this stuff, like how amazing it is. And like, it was one of the things, like, it was like it was a scheme company where it's just like, it was a fake, those get rich fast companies where they were telling me the stories about, oh, this person who's a DJ, he like only works this amount of time and he makes a lot of money and he can focus on this. And then like kind of understanding the structure of their business and whatnot, like what they do. Like basically it didn't seem like a corp job. When I asked about like, oh, do you give out benefits? And they're like, yeah, no, we don't do benefits. You just get your own benefits. We'll talk about it later. And then it was very fishy, especially after finding out that I had to walk 5 miles. So I remember going back, after that was done, I remember going back to the office and they're asking me, so what do you think? You want to do this job? And here's again, like I talk about the law of attraction. Law of attraction is like, okay, you want to do a business job? Oh, here's something. So like, I remember talking to the guy who was like the lead guy. I think the high seller of that company. I was just like, hey, what do you think? And I was like, no, I'm not interested, man. And he's like, he kind of just like brushed it off, walked away. He was like, looked upset. And then I remember talking to, when they saw me walk away and I didn't go back inside there, and one of the guys from the office came in and just like, hey, so what's going on, man? What's happening? You didn't like, what, was it bad? And I was telling him like, experience is like, this is not what I expected. Like, this is not what I paid for. This is not what I want to work for. And this and that. Like, I remember even talking about like to them, those two people, they were younger than me. Talking about like my businesses of just like what I want to do. And like, I think those two other people didn't even graduate from college. They just basically went to the situation where like, they'll do anything to get a living. They'll do anything in their life to make money. They don't, I remember one of the guys who was showing me around was saying something like, in the sense where like, oh, if it came down to how to shovel people's poo, shovel shit, I will shovel shit. Me hearing from a person who graduated from college, and I'm looking at them like, thinking in my head, I was like, seriously? Okay. So I remember that. We get back to the office, the guy walked away because he was upset, and I talked to people, and then like, lo and behold, I was so relieved, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was one of the things where like, again, universe is just saying, here you go, what do you think? And I was like, no, I'm not doing this shit. I am not gonna go to another office. I'm not gonna go far away and be a door-to-door salesman of selling baseball tickets. And I remember they were talking about, mind you, this is the type of company it is. Even though they were a type of company to test like your worthiness, I guess you can say. Basically, they told me this one time a story where they brought this guy to go to a city. It was the guy, I think he was the one who was talking about shoveling shit. They brought him to a city that's 50 miles away to sell car washing programs that was back in the city that was 50 miles where he's from. And I guess he made some sales because he was talking about it. He made a couple sales, but the point of that shit was to show his worthiness of working in that company. And then I was like thinking in my head, I was like, I don't want to do that shit. I didn't go to, again, I mentioned again, I didn't go to college to walk on my feet for 5 miles in the heat. So that was an example where just like it led off, where just like, okay, here you go, law of attraction trying to show you something, and you're like, you don't want it. Okay, we just showed you what you gave me. And it wasn't until like, for example, like I actually found the role. This one was interesting. I feel like this was where like the law of attraction was putting me into a position. Okay, this is probably gonna work. Let's put you in, see what happens. And then it wasn't particularly like the role I had, or it wasn't particularly aligned to my degree, but it was based off of the experiences I previously had with other companies. Like, with IKEA, would have had a big experience in supply chain and logistics or whatever, and they basically applied it to that. It was a temporary role. I think one way or another, because of the images and likenesses of myself, I was able to get in there. And that turned out to be like, for the moment in time, I was blessed for that. I was thankful for the universe to do that. Like where, they put me in a role where it lasted for 14 years. Now, it may not have ended the right way, but I think sometimes the law of attraction will give you the certain things and events where, where they'll show you like, okay, here's what I think you want, what you choose to be, what you're telling me what you want, and here you go, and you roll with it. And then from there, they will provide you the circumstances, the events, things that you're aligning yourself to. And I remember that too. Yeah. I had a great time in there. That corp job I was working at. It was Walmart e-commerce. I worked there for 14 years. Probably one of the best experiences I had, in a sense, at that moment in time, until it came later down the road where we're just like, okay, this is not me anymore. Like, this is what happens sometimes when you grow out of your shell and the law of attraction is pushing you to another direction, or like it's kind of like that blessing in disguise thing. But like, I met some people, I met some amazing folks, individuals. And this is the same thing too. We're just like in the heat of law of attraction, bringing it up and telling people about that. This is mind you, I did that with the other role, and people were like, hey, I don't know about that. And then I went to this one and started talking about it because I believed in it. And this is the thing about me, right? When I believe in something, right? When I believe in something, I will preach it out and show people, look, this is real. This is legit. Look, you can do this too. But sometimes what you realize, and even with the law of attraction, like I realized with law of attraction, not everyone is going to be flexible with it. Not going to be flexible, and you can't just push the philosophy on them because they're not going to understand. So, and this is where, like, I think at that point in time, I think me talking in that age of thinking was probably not the best thing to do because of the fact of, like, people didn't understand that. It's interesting too. By the way, I'm checking at my drop frames. Oh, I had a lot of drop frames tonight, but I'm hoping my recording goes well. Anyway, going back to it. So, like, talking to people, and in this moment of thought, just, when I visualize this, it's gonna come out, blah blah. And people are like, okay, whatever. And then that's where the word of thought happened. It was just like, man, this guy's kind of weird. And teach his own. And this is where, like, I talked about it before, where that person, my friend, I actually ended up working with my friend at Walmart, where basically he was just telling me, like, people are thinking you're delusional. You need to stop. Everyone who says is your friend, they're saying all the shit about you and like blah blah blah. And I'm just like, this is where that moment of time in life where just like, okay, questioning what I'm thinking about, what I believe in. Like at the end of the day, like people would come in there and they say stuff like that. And doesn't mind you, I have to give you a preface. The person I am right now was definitely not the same person back in 2008, 2009. Fuck no, was not. He was more worried about what people thought about him. He was very insecure. He always wanted to make sure that to lessen the conflict of people, talking about me, to lessen the conflict of people, he would just lay down and just allow people and try to assimilate himself to them. Wasn't being himself, wasn't being self-loving, and at the same time, was very insecure. That was back then. You would be surprised now, like if I were to show people if I was able to show the people I meet right now a version of myself back then, they'll be like, wow, that's no way you now. Like this individual who's talking to you on this podcast, talking about the experiences of the law of attraction and whatnot, like this wasn't that individual. It was not. And I think it was because of the fact that, I'm going to talk about my personal life as well, which is like how this rolls up to the law of attraction. It's essentially like, is this, back then, just like, I was in the mode where just like, okay, well, if I don't act this way, or if I don't, if I don't serve the individuals or my friends at the point in time of what they expected of me, then I wouldn't have anyone to hang out with. I would be alone. Like even like, like with relationships, right? I had a few relationships. I'll be honest with you, a few relationships. And then I think part of it is because I'm picky as fuck. And it's part of it because of part of the reason why, because since then I've had relationships where just like, I would lay down to them. Like I couldn't be myself. I always had to look in the perspective of making them happy. Was I making myself happy? No, I was making them happy. So doing what I can to make sure the relationship stays afloat. And sometimes you think about that, where just like, is that really what you should be doing? And just like not even caring about what you think and what your opinions are and just trying to make shit work. Yes, you can try to make shit work, but I feel that sometimes you lose your individuality, where it's just like you're now that person. You don't know who you are. So that when it comes to a point where position where like you break away from the person, you don't know who you are anymore. So that was me. This is kind of ties into like why I got into law of attraction, is because maybe I was that individual who was lost. I was that individual who didn't believe in himself enough. And then it was the things where the law of attraction stepped in. We're just like, okay, here we go. This is something I can believe in, something I take inspiration to. And this is something where, I can finally get a grasp of self-love. And yeah, it has been a bumpy ride. I'll be honest with you. It was a fucking bumpy ass ride. Like even the belief set of believing the law of attraction, like going back and forth of like, what I learned from the books. Like I remember from the first books, Teaching the Abraham, one of the first books from like, Esther and Jerry Hicks, and trying to adapt what I've read in there, basically aligned to the law of attraction from the Secret video, trying to apply it. And then also I started reading Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God. It is a super dense book. And it was like challenging there. When your mind's not right, it can be challenging as fuck. So like, there was times where just like, I remember like even one of the pastimes, if you're Filipino and you're in the United States, more than likely your pastime with your family and me, because I'm risk averse, is gamble at the casino. So that's what we did. We gambled at the casino. But I remember those times back then, in the beginning of the heyday of me believing the law of attraction, I would just be like, okay, we'll just manifest. I would think and visualize what I was going to do, blah, blah, blah. It was great and all. But when it came to a point where like I wasn't getting the right outcome, I remember there were times in the life like I would be yelling in my mind to the law of attraction, like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? This is what you're telling me it's supposed to be. Like, yelling at the universe, and then you always say yes. I was yelling, I was in my mind saying, what the fuck is right? This doesn't make any sense of the stuff I'm trying to attempt to do, and you're telling me that I can do this, but nothing's coming out. What the fuck am I doing wrong? And I remember there's been a lot of that experiences back in the beginning of like the law of attraction, where I didn't understand what it meant. Like where, if you're not as aligned, you may not get, sometimes you're not going to get all the right, you're not going to get exactly what you want. And it also ties into, because of the things you're putting as, ideally you want to see this. And we'll talk about that when you talk about the concept, like how this all works, where basically like, I was already thinking and predetermining like, this is what it has to be like, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't happen. And then when it came up there and had all these hopes of what's going to happen and nothing happened, then blew everything up. So like, back in the beginning, it was just like, it was a challenge. It was trying to understand it. And then, the more we got into it, I remember that too, like going through this time of understanding the law of attraction. Now, again, it took me years to finally understand it, where it came that to, okay, this is what I was doing wrong. Like and I can give you a snippet of it. And I think maybe this is the appropriate time we should probably talk about how it works. Because before in the other video, I was talking about my examples, but I'll talk about the examples last of what I experienced. But now how the law of attraction works, as I take it as everything you choose, you believe that you want to accomplish, whether or not it is positive or negative, the answer is yes. And what I mean by that is, like, if the answer is yes, then it's going to manifest based upon what you think too much or what you feel as that direction is going to be. So going back in the situation where, like, you know, where you're telling in your mind what you want to manifest, or speaking to existence, to the law of attraction, and to the universe, this is what I want to be. This is what I choose to be. Like, I am this. Like, this is one key thing of the law of attraction. The word I am is probably the most important thing. It's like a powerful message. Like, I am this. So when you put in your position, you putting yourself in the position where you're saying, I am not worthy. I can't do this. I am never going to get through this. I can't believe I am in this, or I am that. Or versus, believe me, I am going to be this awesome podcaster who's going to do stuff. Watch me. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but watch. Or I am going to be this amazing singer and watch me do it. I have this idea, but I believe that I am going to make, and it's going to revolutionize many people to believe in it. They're two different than a few. So one of the things with law of attraction is, again, you speak into existence what you want. What do you really want to do? This is your purpose, your why. What exactly you want to be? Whether it's big things or small things, if it's just like, you know, it could be simple as enough as, like, depending on how aligned you are, getting parking at exactly where you want to go, or getting this cup of coffee, something small, or it's going to take some work to build up to it. But essentially, you know, manifesting this dream thing, your purpose, your why, or what you're doing, like, you see the outcome, you feel what exactly it's going to be at the end of the day. Like, you already know that, okay, when you get to that point, when you actually hit it there, you're there. And you're like, wow, I knew it's going to be like this. I felt it in my bones. This is what's going to be like. And yes, I'm speaking in a sense where, like, it sounds so simple, right? But however, there's a lot of things tied into it where, like, you know, it's not just having good thoughts, being happy all day. It's not just that. There's a lot more to involve. So let me explain some more. So, okay, you're thinking about what you want to put together. You're speaking to existence what you want to be. You have to be in this attitude of gratitude. Mind you, attitude is 100% important. Having gratitude for something now you have, and for something that doesn't even exist yet, is very important. Having gratitude for just, like, waking up in the morning, be thankful for your surroundings, being great, having gratitude in the sense of being able to be with your loved ones, or be able to be in a situation where, yes, you're not at the pinnacle of what you want, but you're leading towards it. That is a statement of gratitude. Attitude is gratitude. It's one of the most important things I will say to you, is being positive thought thinking. Yes. Yeah, people might say, oh, it's putting the rose-colored glasses on. Yeah, in a sense it is. However, it goes in tandem with your belief. The more positive, the more gratitude you have for your life, along with the belief set, you'll be surprised how far you go. You know, you'll be very surprised. Like, when you're very aligned, you'll be surprised how far you go. Now, the other part of it is just like, you know, when I talk about this, the universe can do anything. The universe, in a sense, can do anything in the sense of manifesting it. It doesn't necessarily need to be in one way. It can come in many ways. And this is where the important thing of all this is, basically, you don't need to worry about how it's going to happen. And people might to look at me right now and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? How do you make something happen without knowing how it's going to fucking happen? And I'm going to say this. The reason for that is because there's two reasons. Well, no, not two reasons. This is the reason. Is if you give the universe, law of attraction, God, whatever it is you believe in, the energy, the source, whatever, if you give it so many variables to be specific enough where you're like, okay, I'm going to become this. I'm going to become this podcaster by doing this. This is how we're going to do it. Then what's going to happen is the law of attraction is like, all right, you're going to become this podcaster just by this way. So if you think about if giving an option basically to the universe in the sense where like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And it has to be done this way. There's no other way it needs to be done. You can imagine the law of attraction saying, yes, we're going to do this together. But man, this is a lot of work. We're going to take forever to do this because it's only you want me to just do this. So again, some people might be able to manifest it so easy just focusing on one thing. But yet again, like, when you're trying to build something, like it's the same thing too. Just like when you're trying to build a huge dream, it's going to take time to put the dream together. But however, if you make it so narrow enough where it doesn't make any sense anymore, and it's going to take times longer to even get it manifested, it's probably because you're making it so narrow. And now this is what I'm going to say is this. Instead of worrying about how you're going to do it, don't worry about how it's going to happen. This is where you give total freedom to the law of attraction, universe, God, whatever you believe in. But this is free reign. And you essentially surrender to the universe, surrender to God, surrender what it is. And you say, in my mind, this is why I say in my mind when I'm manifesting certain things, we're in events where just like, you know what? I don't need to know how it's going to be. I leave it up to you, the energy, universe, God, whatever it is, to find the solution to where I'm trying to go. And now the difference of that is, okay, versus, example one, you're trying to manifest this thing, you're calling stuff in existence, but you're telling law of attraction, universe, just this. this panel here is what you can go based off of. And then you see probably the work of magic of universe or law of attraction or God, whatever have you. They're like, yes, we're trying to work on this, but we're only stuck in here. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some time because you're giving me this restraint. Versus, this is where I'm going to be. I believe I'm going to be this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but we're going to fucking do it. Watch. The universe is like, okay, we have all this possibilities to make this work. So what we're going to do is they give you pieces and parts. And this is where, like, being it in the position where it's so open-ended makes it so much easier for the law of attraction to apply what you're trying to get at. So much easier because of the fact that it's not so restricted to one thing. It can probably do certain things that you weren't even aware of, but somehow you're going to end up being the same result of what you're trying to get at, as in your belief, your purpose, your why. So if you do in that position like that, where trying to have this expectation, that's the biggest thing. Having a fucking expectation that I expect it to be this way versus I have zero expectations. I don't know. But I'm going to leave it to you to figure it out. You'll be amazed at what's going to happen and the circumstances are going to be. Where like a lot of things where you never thought of will open up. Or a lot of things and avenues will open up to you because of the fact that you're not so restrained to shit. So one of the examples I can give you with that, were just like, with this journey I'm on. This journey to why am I here in the Philippines? And it all started like this, right? Like, mind you, I was talking about my corp job. I was talking about where, I was working there for 14 years. But somehow, some way, that trajectory changed because of the fact of, I think the law of attraction universe knew what we were going to lead to. Because it wasn't until 2019 was the last time I went to the Philippines, right? This is why I vacationed here in the Philippines, in Bohol. We ended up coming back here. And I had to give you a preface. Every time I visited the Philippines, I always had this thought in my mind. I'm like, okay, I really think I could live here. I can live here for 6 months. Maybe I should try it, maybe not. But those times would never happen because of the fact that, I was in the United States. I was in the comfortability of the United States. Everything is available to you. When you come to the Philippines, it's a little bit different, but every time I would visit, it'll be like, wow. And this is when I got older. Like, I think it was like 2007-ish is like when I was a little bit older. Came to realization, I was like, wow, Philippines is amazing here. I could probably live here. And then came to another trip. We went to go vacation. I think it was like the next one was 2019 was the actual next time we went back to the Philippines. And then it got refired up again. We're just like, I can live here. I can do something here. And it's funny too, because I remember like opportunities, my cousin, bless his soul, and sometimes I feel like he's always around me, and I believe he is. He was telling us of stuff back then, like 10, 15 years ago, of like opportunities, investment opportunities. And he was telling us, hey, you need to do this stuff because I'm telling you, it's going to be something big. And then back then he was talking to me and my brother, and me and my brother looked at each other. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I live in the United States. I'm never going to live in the Philippines. And it's funny too, I say that because of the fact of, my cousin, I always feel he's around me. He mentioned to me, I'm like his favorite cousin and whatnot. But the stuff he was talking about like 10, 15 years ago, wow. If we actually paid attention, listened to him, it probably worked in our best favor. You know what I mean? So like, like 2019 came, we came visiting here, and then like I was just like, man, I really wanted to do it. And this is like before we went to the Philippines in 2019, I just got promoted to a new role. Looked it to be something ideally I wanted to do. And then I went on vacation for 20 days and went to the Philippines. And I also had that thought in my mind, which is like, maybe I should move to the Philippines. And then came back here. And then this is where like, basically the world went upside down when COVID happened. And basically our roles changed and how we go to office, and it was work from home. And then also too, in the same time, my parents were retired back in 2008. So my parents right now are their late 70s. So they retired when they were like in their late 50s. So they've been retired for a long time. But however, from like 2017 forward, they always had the conversation. I remember hearing at home in the United States, or they always talk about when we should go home. Is there anything for us here? Blah, blah, blah. I think it's time for us to go home. And then basically going after coming back, like I started like coming from 2020 when COVID happened, I would hear it more and more, where basically like, somehow, some way, like, what my experiences and what happened, it kind of tied into theirs. We're just like, okay, they want to go back home to the Philippines. And then there's some events that happened that occurred on my mom's side where just like it actually started put more perspective into motion. Unfortunately, during COVID till at least 2023, my mom lost, let's see, 4 brothers, right? What do you think? 3 brothers, 4. Well, 4 was before COVID happened. It was a little bit after. It was 2019, I think, more or less. And then 2020, COVID happened. And then first, my mom's youngest brother passed away in 2021. And then my mom was, shock. Like it was a out of nowhere kind of thing. He passed away due to sepsis. And then after that, the year after, this is where the back, or not, it was in 2022. I think the year was 2021, and then it went to 2020, move on the year later. My mom was still recovered. My uncle, the older, like the one my mom was close to, he was kind of going through things too. He was in and out of the hospital. He wasn't doing well, but he was in and out of the hospital. He was still there. So basically towards the end of 2022, he was hospitalized. And I remember too how we found out about that situation where just like I visited my cousin wanted to have dinner with me, and then I was treating it as like, regular conversation, blah blah blah. And he put a comment here. He was like, hey, you probably want to visit my dad soon. And I was like, okay. I was like, why? He's like, well, he hasn't been doing well. As you know, he's been in the hospital a lot, and they said he probably has a couple weeks left. So Got to tell my mom. That was a weird, those weird conversations you don't want to hear. And then I had to tell my mom. We went to visit my mom, and then like visit my mom and visit my uncle at their house. And I remember that my uncle's already prepared. He was already talking about like, yeah, I already had it. Like he was already talking in like a different. He was already in a different planet. He was talking about like how he already got visited by his angel. The angel showed him around. This is what to expect. Blah 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 blah. This and that. And then, same thing too. My dad was trying to focus on another topic, and he would talk in and out and not really pay attention. And then my mom would do the same thing. And then basically, from there, he goes in the hospital a week later. So it's interesting with that, the dynamic when people know it's time to go, they already know. So he went to the hospital. It was 2 weeks. He was in the ER, not ER. He was in the ICU for about 2-3 weeks, and then before Christmas, was it before or after Christmas? I forgot. He passed away. So that's the second brother my mom had to deal with, or like she wasn't recovered from the first cut, the youngest brother, and then this one passes away. Roll into 2023. Another of my mom's closest brothers. He was going through stuff too. I think he was already at the age where like he had some little bit of dementia and whatnot. But something happened to him. I think he was already diagnosed for congestive heart failure. So like something was bad. Something was going on. He was already in and out of the hospital, and then he had to slip and fall. Where he ended up going to a hospice. This is back in February, March of 2023. He passes away. So you can see what's going on. My mom hasn't recovered at all. All three of those brothers have passed away. And then the conversation of talking about going back home and this and that, it started getting stronger and stronger. And then here comes August 2023. It was August 23. We get a call in the Philippines in here in Cebu. My mom's oldest brother, he passes away. So my mom was even more distraught. She wasn't in the position to even go to the Philippines. So what ended up happening was me and my brother went. So we ended up going to the Philippines in August 2023. We're still, mind you, I'm probably trying to preface this in the sense where basically there was conversations of what we wanted to do and what we're thinking about what we should do in the Philippines and whatnot. We go to the Philippines, and then basically we started thinking about it. We visited my cousin, went to the funeral, blah blah blah. Me and my brother had this conversation. We're like, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should actually move to the Philippines. And when we came back is when we made the decision to say we're gonna go move to the Philippines for my parents. And that was one of my purposes. I realized that why I'm here is for my parents, to bring my parents back home. With me and my brother, bring them back home. And then also to figure out whatever we're going to try to do this to make this sustainable. So mind you, take a preface back to, okay, what led me to this point of me being involved to the decision to move to the Philippines. When I was working the corp job, it wasn't, and this is when I came back in 2019 from that trip. Everything kind of went down south. And this is where basically tying into, the kind of what the law of attraction is trying to pull me towards. Basically, things were kind of going down south of my job. I ended up I came back for this role, and then something happened where I ended up having a panic attack. I talked this past in the last podcast where I had a panic attack, and there's a reason why I meditate. By the way, meditation, in my opinion, is very important for the law of attraction. We'll talk about it a little bit, but let me get to this point. I had a panic attack. Things went bad. I had to take time off for 2 weeks. So when it came to review time for my role, I got a horrible review. I didn't get any money, no increase, nothing. What ended up happening, they put me in a role that was totally irrelevant to what I did. I got volunteered to do a job, and I fucking hated it. And from that point, I realized that the universe was trying to put me in a situation to realize this is not what you want to do. And I basically remember those days when I was doing this job, when I was this volunteer job, when I was speaking out the existence to the universe, where I was saying, I don't care if I get laid off. Fuck this job. And I was telling my parents that. This is like, during 2021ish, where I was just like telling him like, I didn't like this job. I hated this fucking job. And what ended up happening, February 2021, I got laid off. I think the universe put me in the position, and then epiphany, a wake-up call, when I realized during COVID that I don't want to do this fucking job anymore. And I put out the existence that I'm going to quit. I will get laid off from this job. And what ended up happening, I got laid off from the job. And this is where it led to, the build up to move to the Philippines. I ended up becoming a caregiver of my parents. Mind you, trying to find a job in 2021 too. So I became a caregiver and trying to find a job. Oh my goodness. The path to find a job in 2021 in the United States was terrible. Because why? I think it was coming out of COVID, where everyone was work from home, blah, blah, blah. There was a massive layoff in technology, and I was in tech. So within that time where I don't give a fuck, fuck this job, blah, blah, blah. It was even challenging to find a job. However, I think the law of attraction put it in the way where just like, okay, well, if you're trying to go to the Philippines with your parents and this and that, we're not going to let you find a job because that derails what we're trying to do, the long-term passion, purpose, where you're doing stuff. So basically, I remember that. I remember applying for almost 800 jobs, 900 jobs, didn't get anything. There were 2 jobs I actually got an interview for, and one of them led to a panel. I thought everything went well. I did really good. And then came to find out then at the final review that they didn't pick me. Interesting enough, with that job, the people who got hired for that role, they got laid off. So even if I got that job, I would have got laid off in the matter of 2 months. So the universe was protecting me somehow. Where they're like, nah, you're gonna go to the Philippines, so you're not gonna worry about that. We're gonna make this happen. Same thing with another job. I went to the hiring manager. I thought it was a great interview with the hiring manager. It would have been a high-paying job. And then what ended up happening? I didn't get the job. Again, same situation. That role, that organization was laid off. And I think something happened in the city in San Francisco where there are reasons why the layoffs did happen is because of the fact of some things occurred legally. So in a way, even if I got hired at that job, I wouldn't even got the job. I would have been fired anyway. So moving towards, okay, universe is I'm trying to find a job. Universe is like, okay, well, we're going to prepare you for the Philippines. So we're going to make you a caregiver. I can tell you not, when it was a struggle. It was a complete struggle of, basically being at literally nothing in your wallet. This is mind you a little bit past my, because when I got laid off, I got a severance package, so I had to add at least a year and a half of payments or whatnot, a year at least. And then basically when it got depleted, then it got harder, right? And man, I was able to find a job with a thing. I was adamant where I'm not going to be working like just a regular job. I remember my brothers telling me, oh, why don't you just work at McDonald's or work at an entry-level job? No, I had a degree. Why would I do that? And then, that turned into to be one of the most stressful but memorable points in my life where I became a caregiver of my parents. Seeing how important it is to take care of them, Like, I remember the point in time where, even if I had nothing in my wallet, I remember this one time that I went to buy food with my dad, and I was just like, I broke down to tears because I was like, let me just pay for it. And my dad says, you don't have money. And I teared and broke down and cried, and I was like, no, let me fucking pay for it. Please. And I did, paid for it. But I think what's most important is just when I look at just again, going back to how I got to the Philippines, I think the universe was already preparing me for this. They're already putting me in the position where I put back years ago when it came to the opportunity where my mom and dad were talking more and more about the Philippines, and also to the circumstances that happened to my mom's side where a lot of her loved ones moved beyond. And that turned me to a situation where just okay, you've been thinking about this long time now. We're going to put you in this position where now you're going to the Philippines. So yeah, back in August 2023, when we came back, we made a decision. We ended up, saying we're gonna move. We hired a realtor he's a very flamboyant realtor, by the way. Oh my goodness. But he knew his shit. And it's funny too, even that realtor, when they're selling a house, you know how everything aligns? I kid you not. We hired him and we're cleaning our garage, and we had a pamphlet of him from I think it was 2007, 2008. So epiphany, or not epiphany, like a deja vu moment where it's like, okay, we were meant to work with him, because it'll be very interesting enough that we pulled a flyer from him from long ago, from almost 10, 15 years ago, of his flyer in our house. So to each his own. If you think it was just by chance, then do you. For me, it shows me that it was meant to be, that we were supposed to work with him, which we did. He was a pain in the ass, but he was able to sell our house. Even the build up to getting to, for example, getting our house ready to be sold or to be sellable, that was a journey within itself. It was a journey of learning things that I wish I'd never taken for granted from my dad. My dad was a 30-year contractor, where, before then he would use his bare hands to do home improvement at parents' houses while he was working another full-time job, working for the post office. He always had a side gig. One thing about my dad, he is always making sure that, okay, always thinking forward of okay, how can I do this? How can I make sure I can stay in the living for my kids, my mom, my wife? So he would work 7 days a week and then have his construction gig on the side. So I remember going through that journey when we were trying to meet. It was me and my brother. My dad would tell him, I'll do it my way, do it my way. And then, my dad's in the 70s, 75, 76. And he's do it my way, I'll do this. But it's a challenge, right? But, one of the things I learned, it was just having the patience with my dad. And I still have deal with stuff with patience with my dad. I think being exposed to a caregiving experience in the United States leading up to now, I'm happy I had that experience, because of the fact of it wouldn't have prepared me to what I'm doing right now. I realized even though we brought our parents here in the Philippines, there's still a lot of high touch stuff we have to deal with them. But going forward with that, the experience of the house, working with the people that we thought would work out, but it turned out to be a waste of time. And then same thing as the law of attraction, mind you, the right person that helped us solve all our issues of the house that we're putting together. And he got us to the finish line. And it's funny, in the beginning, my mom made a comment, and it's probably the law of attraction giving, here you go, what do you think? Here's option A, who maybe he won't do the greatest job and be terrible. Whereas option B, who'll get the shit done. So this guy who my mom was making comments oh, he was a contractor, blah, blah, blah. And my dad's no, we're going to go with this guy, the one who he needs a job and he'll do it anyway. Versus we should work this guy who's experienced. We went this guy. We had a ton of fucking problems with this guy. Where it's just he did some half-ass work. So we ended up just letting him go, because it's just you didn't do what you're supposed to do and whatever. And then we got the other guy, and oh my god, he fixed everything. And also too, he was always available when we called him. So it's the law of attraction was always just providing us a situation where it's just here we go, here's a person who can help you and help you figure out how to get this house done and ready. So even circumstances where I remember too, it's funny because I think we had issues with rodents in the house when we were trying to sell it. And even though we were trying to patch them and get the house sold, for some odd reason in my brother's room, they would cut a hole and open it up. And I don't know why. I guess they're trying to escape. So we would call it was my cousin's husband. We'd call him and say, hey, we need your help to patch this up real quick before we have a view at the house. Because in the United States, you have open house where people walk in your house to see if they want to buy or not. So we would have him come last minute and plaster and make it look like everything looks fine and dandy. And he was there. So imagine, the universe gives you options of what you want to do. And depending on what you want to do, it's going to say, okay, we'll see what happens. Here you go. Right? If we took it back, that guy on this hand, we probably have been able to sell a house even earlier, got even more money, etc. But we went with this option. and that option wasn't too great, and we had a lot of learning experiences from that. We're just like, okay, I'm never doing that shit again. I think it's like sometimes the universe will probably give you things to make you realize and learn, like, okay, you wanted this, here you go, now what do you take from it? So now fast forward to like, okay, a little bit fast forward to selling the house, where like basically, you know, we had people open the house. Our house has been like on the market for 30 days, but there was always from the beginning one family that went to the house, the first ones to see the house, and they came like 3 times and whatnot, but like the house was on the market. No one was picking up the house. No one was interested. And then lo and behold, it was the person who freezes the house first. Now they were trying to play some hardball. I'll be honest with you. They're trying to lowball the cost of the house. They're trying to point out things that were totally irrelevant. Like, oh, this is broken. This is broken. This is broken. And we're like telling them, nope, it's not broken. Look, here's evidence. It's not broken. We fixed it all. And then we eventually came to a meeting point where we're just like, okay, here's the house. Here's where we're going to go for the price. It's like in the Philippines for real estate, it's more complete. Here in the Philippines, you have to do so much shit to make sure you're not getting fucked over. United States, the realtor does all the transactions, does all the like selling. They actively sell your house, but also too, like they align the right people. They will give you information. Okay, you should do this because it's going to work. So like I remember that time too, where that guy, the first buyer of the house, our realtor was saying, you got to pay attention to this guy. And somehow, some way, I think the law of attraction was basically trying to tell us, tell him, you need to point him to this because this is the key to go to the Philippines. So remember, we heard him out. They gave us the first offer and I was like, oh my God, that's super low. And then this is when we came back with, you know, here's our counter. We went more closer to X amount. It's like, here's our counter. What do you think? And then it was back and forth. They did another counter and I was like, no, we'll do a little bit up. And then we agreed. And then I think in the United States, for selling a house, when you actually agreed upon selling the house on the price and whatnot, it's called the escrow period. So we had an escrow period of, I think, 20, 30 days. And after that, we went to the Philippines. So imagine that going from like, you know, and I'm going to summarize that piece where it's just like, you know, my parents have always been talking about the Philippines, and it wasn't until like a traumatic event where, you know, made us realize what's important for our purpose in life and what we are doing and what we should be positioned towards. Like for my sake, I don't find it as a coincidence at all that I got laid off from my corp job to turn into a caregiver and then to end up here in the Philippines. If none of those things happen, I would never be in the Philippines. Same thing as my brother. My brother gave up a high-paying salary job to move here and take the risk. And we did that. We did that for purpose. My first purpose of why I'm here was to bring my parents home. Now, the second purpose of all this, right? And building this is the law of attraction, working at the piece, like manifesting who you are going to become. Now, what's important here, and I'm going to put it in here because I know I've been kind of saying how this works, but I've been putting like meat in the bone in certain areas so you understand like my experiences while tying into how it works. So like, you know, I'll reference again. You put the stuff in existence. You don't say, you surrender. You just have a belief and understanding, a feeling that you're going to be there. You're going to do this. You're going to experience this. However, you don't put in a position where how you're going to do it. You don't know how you're going to do it. You're just surrender. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. Watch. Tie into believing, putting the feeling, like what does it feel like when you actually get to that pinnacle of success? Like what do you feel like? For me, when it comes to me actually seeing billions watched and millions subscribed, what does that feel like? It's probably a sense, for me, it's a sense of gratitude, like shit, I fucking did it. It aligned me to all these people, these events, these circumstances, the ones who essentially are working your way with you there. Now, I have to give a caveat for the people that you meet on this road. Not everyone's going to join you on this journey. And it's been proven more than enough to me on here on this journey where just like some people will build you to a direction where you're going to go, but they can go so far. And it's because of the circumstances themselves where the law of attraction, universe is like, nope, you gotta stop here. However, there's gonna be circumstances in this journey where you meet people at the right moments, at the right times. For me, for some odd reason, it's interesting where like I find folks who need a little assistance. In a way, not in a mean way, like the broken people, like the people who falling apart, but somehow, some way I attract those folks. And then what it turns out to be, or I help them in a sense, and they open their eyes to what I believe in. They become a believer in me, which is fucking amazing. Or circumstances where you're on this journey, you put in like this faith or belief, like this feeling that you're gonna be this, that you end up getting tied to folks who have the same spirituality as one, who have the same spirituality as you, and also the same belief set. So now what I mean by spirituality is, like, for example, for me, one of the key components for manifesting and in the law of attraction is meditation. You got to, for me, it's the visualization aspect. Now there's two ways to do the visualization aspect. It's one, it could be through a vision board, which I talked about earlier, where you have this board literally and you put up pictures of things you want to achieve. And then usually folks, after they have this vision board, they will go every day, spend 15 minutes and visualize how does it feel to get whatever's on your vision board. For my sake, I meditate. And do essentially the same thing. I visualize in my mind, how is this going to look like? How does it feel to get to this goal you're trying to do? So again, like I talked before, like I use meditation. I meditate every day. I talked about in the last podcast. There's reasons and what solidified me to meditate. Yes, law of attraction is one. Two is my mental health, where I am a victim of 2 panic attacks in my life, and they were corp-related, or they're work-related, where essentially it made me realize that I should be taking myself as a priority to get my mental health up. This is why I started meditating. But with meditation too, I use the visualization game with meditation to get more in line, get more focused, get you in a position where you are fully in that next best version of yourself. Because once you get to the next best version of yourself, it's inching you closer and closer to where you're planning to go. And what I mean by that, that's when the opportunities of the people, the places, things, the events, they are coming towards you, and they kind of tie into that overall arching goal. Now, when I was talking about the spiritual piece, sometimes, for example, I have, and then why I'm bringing it up, I have a third eye. I do. It's usually where, and it ties on, you can sense I am spiritual. I said this to people before back then, when I was in this journey back in July, where the podcaster thing exploded. Something happened to me, and I look at the time. I don't know if I can explain it here, but another time for that. But basically, that's the journey of the podcaster, where I really felt that moment of time where my angels around me are like, this is the guy I wanted. This is the guy that's gonna happen. But this led me to the journey of becoming this podcaster where I am and whatnot. But now going back to the law of attraction and just internalizing what you want and what you want to be, and seeing and believing events, talking about spirituality. Me having a third eye has aligned me with a lot of folks who I never thought I would align to. Even lo and behold, for example, a ghost hunter of all people. We is a girl. She has a third eye. Somehow, some way, we have we have a good friendship. We've known each other for a little short amount of time that I think we have an interesting relationship, that we have a great relationship. Shouts out to her and the people I met who have the same spirituality. And these are people from TikTok. We're just the same belief set, same mindset. There's one individual I met where she I didn't realize that we had a lot in common until she started doing tarot cards. And I was like, wow, this is why we're getting connected. So like I think she has a third eye. So that is where you see the thing what I'm talking about. Even with like my Eastside Girls mods, there's other individuals as well. Same respect. They have a third eye. They're spiritual. They feel in the sense of it. Like mine's probably a little bit different because of the fact that I give mine through meditation. Like theirs is probably they sense it. I can sense stuff like that too, but it's more focused in oneness and whatnot. And then the other people and individuals were like, for example, like as in the other aspect, the ones who are aligned with the same vision and goal. Like I'm a podcaster, right? And somehow, some way, I get aligned with an individual. She is a podcast editor. It's interesting, right? Or I get aligned to podcast channels or podcast avenues, or even how I even get to different platforms for my podcast. And I'm always a firm believer that, sometimes things happen when they should. So when you have no expectation when they happen, they will happen when they should happen. So like the events, I remember this one time we were talking this conversation when I was leading toward back then, when the journey of being a podcaster in July happened, where, I was actively just talking in TikTok and doing the podcast there. Then it led to opening up to Spotify. And then I realized in Spotify from there that, and this is probably the law of attraction at its work, like thinking about, you can actually take my podcast from Spotify and put it other places by what you call RSS. That opened up me to Apple Music, to Apple Podcasts eventually. There was many times I was trying to get the Apple Podcast, but for some reason I couldn't get there. And I feel like in my mind, the law of attraction was saying, nope, you're not ready for that. Until was one day, I just had this weird, those times where you have those thoughts where you're just like, I should do that. The side of inspiration, I think it's inspiration. Like, wow, I should try this. And the same thing with law of attraction, where I asked ChatGPT, I was like, I think it was the law of attraction piece, like me going to asking, like maybe universe was telling me, maybe you should ask ChatGPT since you use it so much. And I asked him, how do I can figure out how I can do this Apple Podcast thing? And it turned out to be, it was an issue with my user ID. And that led to making a totally different user ID, Apple ID. And then I was able to get an Apple Podcast. And that was like a month later. And then even this journey here into where we are right now as in broadcast quality. Mind you, I was on my phone before December. And my brother, I always knew I was gonna get to this point where we get this broadcast quality. Even the equipment we used, we have elevated, I guess you can say, to better and better equipment where things always lined up, right? So like I remember starting this journey when I got the most cheapest stuff on TikTok shop, and it was terrible, but it ended up being slowly buying certain things to make it work. Like I tell you, like I have 5 different of these mics, and it ends up being this one, which is the broadcast professional quality mono mic, the PD400X. I always had a belief we'll get to this point, and somehow, some way, it opened up, and it was one of the things where universe was saying, "Here you go. What do you think?" And the opportunity happened. I bought the mic. Same thing as I have the Monocaster too. Same thing happened. Is the universe saying, "What do you think? You want to go for it?" It happened. So, yeah. Talking about the broadcast quality, like, yeah, I'm running everything off my iMac right now. So like this is all wouldn't be possible. I have a MacBook, but with the amount of resources you need to run this, or even on TikTok Live Studio, I need a more powerful computer. So I was waiting for this. I didn't bring this to the Philippines back in 2024. It was in my storage. So in November-ish, my brother went to the United States to clear the storage. So I was waiting for it. I remember back in my preface, when we were at the province house back in, when I started this journey on TikTok, I was thinking about doing broadcast in OBS. Now, the challenges I ran into is that shitty internet. So if you're in the Philippines, PLDT internet, at PLDT internet, it was shitty. And I was doing it on Wi-Fi. I was trying to do it on my MacBook. It wouldn't work. But I think it's good that we went that way, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been forcing myself to go into, lives. And it was the things where like people would tell me back then, people were like, why don't you go live already? What's holding you back? And I was like, oh, I want the best quality ever, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, I am a quality type of guy where I want the best stuff to show you what I look like, because quality is important. I don't care what you say. If you're trying to elevate and promote yourself or try to brand yourself to the next level, you got to worry about your quality. I don't care. It's always going to come back to quality. So that journey when I was on journey of just like getting to be a content creator on TikTok, and then starting from my phone, and that turned to talking about cinematics, then turned to like daily authentic, and then it turned to this one day person I no longer talk to. I owe it up to that individual where I am at right now, regardless of our circumstances of what's happening right now. I owe it to that person of how we got here. They made the comment, it was like, I remember I was on a podcast, or not a podcast, we were live, and back then I was reluctant to show my face. I was, and I labeled it as like, hey, I'm going to be a person that, it's my content's bigger than my face. You don't need to see my face. Until one day that person said, okay, you tell me you're authentic. And I tell everyone, I am an authentic individual. If you don't know what authentic people are, or what is authentic, I'll put a description here so you understand what it means. But basically, she called me out, just like, if you're authentic, they want you to show your face. And from there, flipped it around. And that's when we started doing lives with showing my face. And then the evolution of trying to do a 25-minute live with talking, and especially running to situations where no one's there and you have to talk. And I'm thinking in my mind is, as a podcaster, you got to keep on talking. So this is how we got better and better at this. Then it came to July, where initially it was for one separate thing, to solve one thing. But now I realize that when I look back, it was the birth of this. When it came from Lobo presents, when it came from J Lobster Roll, and we evolved to a brand, the beginning of a brand, Joe Lobo. It became Joe Lobo. From there, we started doing our podcast. We started meeting different people, getting aligned to it, and then, as you can see, our quality got better and better and better. You can see if you're curious, you can go to TikTok and look at my profile and see my journey of growth, of when I first started as a content creator to the podcaster you see now. And I think the reason why the universe did that is because of the fact of this. It had to show me how this journey worked so that you can eventually get to the pinnacle you are now. I think the many times of me going live for at least 20 minutes and forcing myself to talk triggered something in July, where when I was going through this traumatic event, I guess you can say, where it affected me a lot, because I was trying to help someone at that point in time. But I think it was a light and the fire in my ass that made me be the individual where I can just keep on fucking talking. Where all of a sudden in July, somehow, some way, I had the golden tongue handed to me. It's like, here you go. Now you have the power. You have the gift of gab to talk. And that's where I felt in my mind, when I see and visualize, where my angels around me. I tell you this, I am very spiritual and I sense them. I feel there's my angels around me. When I saw that moment of time, I could see it. They're like, fuck yeah, this is the guy I wanted. And I see it. And now look where we are now. If you cannot tell me that is, if you can teach his own. You can probably say that's his chance, and that's fine. That's fair to you. This is all by chance. But in my opinion, in my mind, I feel that this was a working by the law of attraction to get me to my second purpose. My second purpose is to become a podcaster, to spread knowledge and belief to individuals, to say you are bigger than yourself. And it's not about, and I always say this, it's not about me, it's about you. The people who watch this eventually see what I'm talking about. They see and understand, oh, this is what Joe Lobo is. Like the people who are having the roughest times of their lives, and they're watching and listening to my podcast, and they realize, wow, this guy's waking me up and making me believe in myself to say, I can do this too. And regardless of what my circumstances are, yes, I wear 2 gold chains and I have gold everything, whatever. Like, it's totally irrelevant. I'm just a person just like you. But I'm telling you, based on my experiences and why I'm at the position I am, I owe it up to the law of attraction. The law of attraction lined up everything to get to where we are, to our 2 purposes. Purpose 1, as I talked about before, getting my parents to the Philippines and opening up opportunity for both me and my older. And that's still scary. Like, I'll be honest with you, it is scary as shit to be uncomfortable, but I feel in my mind that this is going to be something which is like, yes, this is exactly what it's going to turn out to be. The belief, the mindset that like there are reasons why universe puts you in circumstances or not to get you prepared and get you ready. Yes, I'm not going to say it was the best experience ever living in the Philippines. There are some learning lessons I had to deal with. I'll be honest here, but we're fucking dealing with it. But the most part, you know, we were meant to be here. We were. Even the people we worked with to get to this house, the connections, it's a whole law of attraction aligning us to these people. Same things for my brother. Look, my brother first started with a podcast with Tropic U. Now he's doing an organization, and now good for him. Congratulations. If it turns out to be huge and monumental, I hope he keeps it going because of the fact of the success and what he wants. He wants to be an individual that he's like, I guess I can say well known in a sense, where like he's helping many individuals realize something like similar to what it was in the United States that's not really available here in a sense in Bohol. So yeah, just maybe that's the second purpose of WOW, to build something that along with our why we're here, as in like, you know, the avenues of making this sustainable. And then just leading up to my podcast again, the journey of just like trying to get me to a position where, you know, all the experiences I've dealt with here has led me to this defining moment where I feel and consistently believe, welcome to the world's famous Billions Watched. I firmly believe in. Look at where we have grown. If in your mind, if this is not something that's showing you how law of attraction works, and mind you, this comes with I meditate every single day. And every time, most parts when I wake up, having gratitude and meditating and visualizing who I'm going to be and how this is going to look like, how it feels to get to where you're going to be. This is a daily thing with me. And you're seeing the results play out. And that's one of the most amazing things to see. And I tell you, like with the law of attraction, yes, there's a lot of learnings you have to do and realizing like, yes, you may not get the first time, but if you're in a position where you're adamant that you're going to get there, that you firmly believe that no matter what, you are going to end up what you believe is in your heart, where you're going to go, it's going to come to you. It's going to come to you. It may take, who knows? It could be an instant tomorrow where whatever you want, whether it's big or small, it shows up in your hands tomorrow, or it takes maybe a year. However, you get connected with all these people who are aligned to the same thing you believe in, or you get connected to opportunities that will allow you and help you along the way to get to what you want in your mind. And this is where like it's amazing, where it's just like when you take a step back and realize like, wow, having gratitude for the stuff you put out to existence, whether it's the universe, whether it's God. Like, again, I know that many people, as in, you know, I know this is a touchy subject, but for God, like, I know there's a lot of people who look at, like, for law of attraction, like, how can this be? This individual, the God I call, like, I have to praise him or else he's going to do something. How are you making this so easy? It all goes to interpretation. So for me, just like I mentioned before, I don't look at God as something that I have to praise or else something's going to happen to me, or, you know, I have to owe to him and do all this. No, I look at him as he's a partner in all this. He or she or what they are a partner at this, and they'll always say yes. So it really comes down to you, what you can control. Again, also too as well, I have to say is you cannot control anything anything that's outside your control. As much as you try to do it with the circumstances, the news, and everything you're getting bombarded with in daily life, you can't control those circumstances. What you can control is yourself, how you react to them, what you want to focus on. And this is where, like, you know, current events that are happening right now. Like, I don't need to explain the current events, but like, you probably know, if you're watching this right now, what I'm talking about in the world. They're happening. What can you do? But how I take it as is just like, honestly, I'm going to just focus what I'm going to believe in and what I can control. And that means what I can manifest and create. Because those are the things like where I'm the person putting the stuff together, as like the guy who's trying to make bread in the bakery. I'm the one putting the ingredients together. I'm kneading it out. I'm putting it in the oven to make sure it's cooked, and bam, here's your bread. I'm that guy. I cannot control what happens outside. I cannot control what you see on the news. And mind you, for an individual who believes in the law of attraction manifestation, I don't watch news. Because you know why? And the reason for that, it's important too. Yes, it's great to be informed and stuff, but sometimes when you watch too much of it, then you get so ingrained that it kind of takes control of you, if you know what I mean. And some people might think of me as like, man, that's not you are talking so weird. But think about it. Like, when you react to shit like that and you wear that stuff on you, it affects your day. Yes, you can't control what happens and what circumstances are outside your control. However, you can control what you think about. Then this is where, like, it ties into, like, I was talking about back in 2008, where I was this individual where I was insecure. I felt like I had to lay down to people, even my relationships. I had to take myself out of it and just please her. And it came to a realization after all that pain and suffering and whatever, that I had to build and self-love myself. And this also ties into the law of attraction. You have to love yourself. That is the most important thing that you have to do. If you do not do that, then I don't know how you're going to be able to get any of this stuff. You don't self-love yourself. I'll be honest here. Maybe, shoot, if you're a super manifester and you can do that stuff, then fuck, do it. But you have to self-love yourself. You really, really have to self-love yourself. You have to put yourself first in most situations. Actually, all situations, to be honest with you, because of the fact that you are the important individual in this cog of manifestation. You are the one that's going to be driving that. Are you going to give the instructions to the driver, aka the universe, God, whatever you want, to go where you want to go? So what's important is having that self-love. And this is where it ties into meditation, getting yourself aligned, getting to your next best version of yourself. Again, this is why I meditate, because it allows me to be centered and get back to focus with all the craziness shit that happens in life. Yes. And this is why I tell folks too, people who are dealing with the most wildest stuff, it's only temporary. And that's why I tell people, even the recent ones, when I told them, like, we're just hang in there. It's gonna be okay. It'll be all right, because it will be all right. It will be all right, because, like, it will. It's only temporary. Shit that we deal with, the circumstances we get bombarded by, they're only temporary. Yes, they're gonna fucking suck at that moment in time. However, when it comes to a point where it's getting better, and it'll be something that you get better, you get stronger from it, right? So there's never a permanent situation where it's just like you're going to be so stuck in that thing. It's only temporary. And sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow. I know it's easy to say. Yes, it will take time to heal, but however, stuff always gets better. And this is like the mindset. Yes, maybe it's looking through the rosy glasses all the time. However, this is where it leads you to the path of getting to your next version of yourself. The self-love, the appreciating yourself, believing who you are. and then using the law of attraction to be who the fuck you are should be, who to be the person that you should become, because you have an amazing purpose that you need to fulfill. That is what could happen. And this is where it's all works and gets tied together. You yourself, you speaking into existence, believing enough and seeing it happen. But also self-loving, having low expectation, having no idea and leaving it up to whether it's God or universe or whatever, just leaving it up to them to say, yes, I'll let you do it. I don't need to worry about it, but I know how this is going to end up. And this is why I always tell them, even in every meditation I do, I always say in my mind, I always welcome, the angels that are around me. I always say it every single time I meditate. And then also too, I always say I surrender. Meaning, not surrender, I give up, but I surrender to, I don't know how we're going to do this shit, but we're going to find a solution to it. And it's even sometimes like when you get to that position where like the stuff, like I mentioned to you, if you leave it up to, I have no idea how we're going to do this, but we're going to figure this out. Again, I mentioned this before, there's going to probably a circumstance that you never thought of, that the universe says, this is the one that's going to work. And then, wow, you get to where you're going to get to. It may have been the most unconventional thing ever or the most weirdest idea ever, but shit, it sparked you to get to the next level. It's just like, for example, me asking ChatGPT to figure out my analytics and how I'm doing on my YouTube channel, and coming to find out that if you look at washing machines, the Authentic Podcast comes up. Or how a certain video description looks and how it is portrayed to people. Are people going to pay attention to it or not? And I think it's like the universe. I talk about the universe and law of attraction. I think using that or giving me the inspiration to think, okay, maybe I should look at my account to see where my shit's going. Because if at the end of the day I'm thinking about billions watched and thing, I should do my fucking damnedest to make sure we get there. And that means looking at your account, see how it grows, how it makes sense. And I believe that they provided the way. And that's what a lot of things in life, where I feel like, even the smallest things. I know we talked a lot in length of how, like the main examples I gave about how law of attraction works for me is basically how I got here and how I became a podcaster. Even the simplest things were, like, for example, I talked about this before, where there was an individual at a coffee shop my friend owns down the street in from where we live. And there was a person that was working there. I was like, I have no clue who the person is. I don't know their name. And I was asking my brother, what's the person's name? Mind you, we did not talk to her. We didn't ask her name or this and that. My friend who owns the coffee shop was not there. So there's no way for me to ask. I did not ask her. To each his own, if you think it's who blah blah or not. But later that day, at night, I get an Instagram follow request from that same individual with her name. Isn't that wild? Do you think that's by choice? By chance? No. I think the law of attraction did that, where basically I was aligned enough to get the answer through through synchronicity. The synchronicity was so fast in that moment, but it was just like saying, all right, I'm gonna give inspiration to that one person that was in the coffee shop to say, I need to somehow, some way follow this person. And it turned out to be, the person we're asking about, like, hey, what is this person's name? It's wild, right? Or even circumstances where, like, even my brand, when I was going through this journey of back then, and I remember this one podcast, not a podcast, it was live, when I was going through this transition phase, where I initially thought it was for one thing, but it turned out to be this evolution to Joe Lobo Presents, essentially, where I was asking one day on the podcast, and I was like, hey, not a podcast, but I was asking on the live, and I was like, what do I call myself? Like, because back then I called my podcast or my live the Organic Hour by Joe Lobster Roll. And then I remember talking about it, and it was just like, what do I laugh. I was like, what do I call myself? Like, I don't know does it make sense what I'm calling myself? And lo and behold, I did not request that person to do it. But somehow, some way, they got the inspiration to do something. Maybe it was the universe saying, do this for my friend Joe Lobo, because he needs it. And then out of nowhere, I get this message through Instagram. It's like, hey bro, I got something for you. You want to take a look at it? I think this should be your brand. And what it turned out to be was basically Joe Lobo. It wasn't Joe Lobo, but it was Authentic Podcast. And then back then I had the hoodie, but it was a wolf. But it was a hoodie, wolf in a hoodie, and it said the Authentic Podcast. And that led to everything else. Led to the rechange of my name when I was Joe Lobster Roll to now Joe Lobo. And kind of changed it now because I'm trying to match all my branding. It's now Joe Lobo Presents. And this one specifically is Joe Lobo Presents the Authentic Podcast. All that brand changing happened. I remember when I got that, when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Overnight, I changed my TikTok profile to be Joe Lobo. And then we eventually gone to the other stuff where we became who we are now, where it's now Joe Lobo Presents. So it's always, it's amazing how things work in your agreement. No, in your way. I never asked that person, but somehow, some way, they got the inspiration to show me, hey, this is something for your live. And it was the start of all this, the Authentic Podcast. And it turned out to be later down the road. We evolved our stuff many times, and now you see the black hoodie with no face, the 2 chains. And even if you look at TikTok, there's one specific for TikTok too. You should take a look at that if you ever branch over there. I'll probably share it here to show you what it is. But it basically is an ode to myself. The 2 chains, what I wear daily, which is a PL. You don't see here, but it's basically an ode to that. And do you think it's by chance? You probably think it is. For me, no. I firmly believe it because I believe of what I'm doing and I believe where I'm going towards. The law of attraction put it in front of me. They allowed it to be, all right, here we go. What do you think? So it's very important. Like, again, this is not an overnight thing. It's the same thing as law of attraction. Law of attraction. This is the same thing as meditation. It's not an overnight thing. You need to work on it. You need to consistently meditate every day to actually feel the full result. I tell folks, you should try meditating for 2 weeks and then you'll finally realize it's doing something for you. It's the same thing as law of attraction. Unless you are an individual who can firmly grasp it in day one and immediately manifest, then you are the one. You are the Neo in the Matrix. You can immediately figure it out. But for me, it took time. It took realization of how this all works. It's not just I think about it, I have good thoughts and manifest. No. It's about feeling, believing, thinking, having the benefit of the doubt and full firm belief, regardless what anyone says, that you're going to get to where you're going to go. And then everything else lines up. The people, the circumstances, the events that lead you to where you are. Yes, this podcast, we're no longer where we are at the finite. No, but we are leading towards the next available opportunity, whether it's the next person, where it's the next individual. And again, I mentioned about people again. Sometimes there are going to be people who are not going to follow you. And the universe is probably going to push you away from those individuals because you know why? They no longer fit your dynamic anymore. But what's good about this though is you will find individuals who are aligned to you at this moment. 100%. You will find those people who are lined up to this moment, and they will be the ones who will cheer and believe you. Now, always bring it up again. Like there's a difference between supporters and believers. And it's true. Supporters support you, but they don't really believe in you. And then there's the believers who support and believe who you are. Right? So, like, this is the law of attraction. Just believing enough, believing what you want, the purpose when you got. Having self-love and who you are, taking time to visualize what have you. If it's something as a vision board or you're meditating every day, pick one. And then trying to not police yourself, but eventually, naturally, it does get to that point. But trying to be in an attitude of gratitude. Sometimes you will have bad days. Yes, everyone has bad days, but it's how you rebound to get to the next level, to get to the next day. That's why I tell folks, like, yeah, it's only temporary. Like, you'll deal with whatever you're dealing with in the next round. And then after you deal with that one thing, then you're ready for the next thing. And then you're ready for the next thing. And then you'll be the stronger individual over and over and over, where you're rebuilding your individual self. Just like with meditation, when I talk about, like, the reason why you meditate is trying to get to the next version of yourself. So put your stuff into existence. You have the firm belief, not worry, have zero expectations of how you get there, but you just have the firm belief that yes, you'll get there. And then you watch all the other things that's where meditation works too, or visualizing gets too, because the more you visualize it, the more you get to more authenticity. Like, I tell you, I'm authentic, but like, it's just like authenticity is where like you firmly believe, regardless of whatever people say about you, that you firmly believe it's going to be what you choose it to be. And you get to the highest state of being where everything is coming your way. And this, you'll be that individual where people always talk about that one guy's like, damn, this guy's getting everything. Damn, this guy is wow. And it's just like, yeah, there's some work you have to do. That's another thing too. With law of attraction, yes, there is going to be things you have to do. You can't just sit back on your ass and just wait and just like, okay, I'm going to be this millionaire. No, you have to do some. That's another thing too. You have to put some work. You got to put some work on your craft. Just like with this just with the podcast thing. I have to do a podcast once in a blue moon. I have to go through the editing sometimes. I have to worry about my quality. I have to make sure after I do a podcast and finish the editing, do I put 2 shorts, and then I have to put it out in the multiple platforms on. By the way, I'm also on Instagram now. So that thing too. So like, you have to put the work in, and then universe will also bless you with other opportunities and events. And that's where it's going to happen for you. And again, this is not an overnight thing. This is a lot of work in getting yourself positioned to believe. And it all helps when you self-love yourself. That's step 1. That helps you a lot, where you take yourself as a priority above everyone else. Some people may think of you as like, man, you are self-centered and you're narcissistic and blah, blah, blah. Nah, not necessarily. I just love myself that much. And I wish more and more people love themselves more, because they would realize that, like, fuck, the true authentic individuals who are there to support me, those are the ones you pay attention to, or those are the ones I should have paid attention to, versus the people who don't understand. So self-love's important. Getting yourself in focus, not have expectations of how you end up there, and just believing it daily, and you'll be surprised how far you go. I've told you a tip of the iceberg. One of the biggest examples I told you today was just like my experience from moving from the United States with no intention to move here. And I realized my purpose and why is for my mom and dad to come here. And I told you that example in the story. And then it turned to be me as an individual. I've always been like this, in like, when I was growing up, I always was a person to give advice. And this is where it turned out to be the podcast for me. Yes, the podcast itself for me is also a relaxation. It is my meditation as well, where I'm spitting my knowledge to you. So I use this as well as my meditation device as well, just for my relaxation of like the craziness that's happening around me. I use this as well to touch, hopefully, that one day. And I'm, again, like, if I didn't give a fuck about, like, the people who watch this and then which wanted to be viral, then I would do all the viral shit necessary to be viral. But for me, I'm happy and hoping that you, the one who is meant for it to watch this, realizes it's like, fuck, he's right. And regardless of what people say and think, it's irrelevant. It comes down to what you believe in, who you are. And once you come to that mindset where it's just like, it's you're in control of your life and you're healing this, then you'll see all the other stuff happen. you'll see other stuff happen. So that is my story. I was initially thinking about using what I talked about in my other podcast, that is the first podcast I ever had, about the law of attraction. You can watch that. It's available on Spotify. Watch and listen. It's available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can search through it. It talks about law of attraction. That's my first one. I talked about a lot of more examples here, but I think for some reason or one way, I think the law of attraction wanted me to talk about this way. So I hope that, this is a long podcast. It was fully, about the law of attraction. I hope it resonates in you to believe that you must believe in yourself. And once you apply the theory in the law of attraction and manifestation or what have you, it can be such an amazing tool to get you to where you want to go. Again, a lot of people will look at you if you start practicing and look at you as like, man, you're crazy. Or there's no way that's going to happen. You see all the struggle I had in my life? How the fuck are you going to be doing the stuff that you think you're going to do? And believe me, I've went through the same stuff as well, where people just didn't understand what this meant. But you'll be surprised once you go beyond those individuals and go beyond the thoughts and become authentic, where you don't give a fuck what people think. Because in your mind, in your belief, your purpose is why is way more important, and you believe that your purpose is why is what you're going to believe in, or is what you choose is very important, that you must preserve and culture and promote to yourself. And none of the people's opinions matter. And that's where you're just going to be taken off, and you'll be surprised how far it's going. It's a work in progress. Just understand that it's a work in progress. Sometimes when you're high flying or you're highly vibrating, then the amazing shit can happen in an instant, but sometimes it takes time, and you realize it, understand it. But just trust and believe that it's going to be okay. You are going to get to that point. You are going to get to wherever you're thinking you're going to be at, or your circumstances will change if you allow it to change. Don't put your hand up in the air as like, what the fuck is happening? Just embrace it. It's like, all right, it's either a lesson that the universe wants me to learn, or this is another opportunity to think about something different. So anyway, we had a hefty conversation about a law of attraction. I hope you take this well. Please, this is a long video. I get it. It's probably going to be even shorter when we do the edit. However, there's a lot of things to take away. Please feel free to watch this over and over as much as you like to get firm understanding. But I'm telling you, to each his own. Agree to disagree. This mindset can take you places. And if you feel that you're not in control of your life, or you want to be in a position where you do, then these words that I'm talking about, given what circumstances I've got to get here, will somehow, some way resonate in you to believe, wow. And then, from there, yeah, you may take some things from me and whatnot, and you might learn other values and opportunities that will work for you, but it's all going to end up going the same circumstance. And I hope you find your way. I hope you find your purpose and why through this teaching. And at the end of the day, I am just showing you my experiences of the law of attraction and manifestation, how it works in my mind. I've had plenty more experiences to show you, and that's why I press again to look at my first video in Spotify and Apple Podcasts, because that's the video I'm talking about that talks about the law of attraction, and I talk about other experiences, how I talk about it. So again, please take this. I hope you enjoyed this conversation we had today. I just felt it was a need to us to talk about it because, we're on YouTube, and I wish I could bring my old one over here, but I can't because it's copyright. So this is why we decided to do it. Anyway, it is we're almost at 2.5 hours, and we're probably going to cut this down to 2. It's been a long podcast. It's very dense. It probably is, but I felt it was important to show you how it works for the law of attraction. In my mind, again, people have their own ways of putting it into how it should work in their mind, and you'll probably get the same path I am. But I at least want to show you the basics of what I believe in the law of attraction and what I've known for years. And it's grown me to the individual I am, and my belief and mindset to I am. Sometimes I feel like I have developed this huge aura enough where it affects people. And I think it's because of what I believe, me thinking I'm authentic and believing in the law of attraction. So what I'm going to tell it for you is like, I hope you nothing but success in your journey and finding who you are. And I'm telling you, like, what my experience, and hope it rubs off on you. You should probably take a look at it if you're curious. And there's plenty of other people here on YouTube who talk about it as well. So you can search their examples of how the law of attraction manifestation works. I'm just another person, another messenger, just giving input of what I believe in. So anyway, it has been an honor and pleasure to talk to you guys tonight, this morning, afternoon, whenever you read this. I would suggest you probably save this, because you'll probably come back to this and listen to it. You're probably going to be situations where like, well, let me see what this is about. What did he talk about? This and that. And there's other books I would suggest. And I'm going to leave it at this. There's 2 books. Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. I'll put it here. That's a book you probably suggest that ties into law of attraction, more relative to, in this perspective, it uses God as universe. Keep your open mind to that book, but basically you'll learn a lot from the book, and it's kind of this concept he uses for law of attraction. You can look at the original book, or the video, The Secret. I can see if I can find it. Or also, there's plenty other people you can take a look at. Just Google search, you'll see what I mean. There's probably tons of people you can look at, but the core one I would suggest is take a look at Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great time, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. I hope you took this information. Yes, it was dense as fuck, I understand. But this is meant for individuals who feel lost, or they feel like they want to find a way or avenue to get to the next level, or they're stuck. So I'm hoping it finds the right people who will embrace this. Yes, some people think this is horseshit, and I totally understand. It's up to you. But again, it's been an honor and pleasure to talk to you guys again. I think the final edit will probably be by next week, but for the most part, stay tuned for this. You can continue watching this live over and over and over, because it's on my YouTube channel. Again, if you want to look at my other content that's on TikTok, please do, at Joe Lobo Presents. That's outside the podcast. You can see me singing and playing video games and do all this stuff. Also, make sure you take a look at my Spotify, Apple Podcasts if you want to look at the other 47, 48 episodes we're at on this podcast. I appreciate you guys do that for me. Anyway, you guys take care. You have a wonderful time. Until next time, you guys take care. See you guys.